The 49ers could make a big move any minute now. Cohn and Kruger, that's Larry Kruger. I'm Grant Cohn. First show in a couple of weeks. Last week, I was at the Combine. Things happened. I was on a different area code, but we're back by popular demand. And we got to talk about Trent Williams because we didn't get to talk about that last week. But I want to start with some other. We're going to get to Trent Williams in a minute. First, the Minnesota Vikings have made it known that they are shopping Jonathan Greenard, who is a very good edge rusher. And as we know, the 49ers recently hired former Minnesota Vikings general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, who traded for Jonathan Greenard a couple of years ago. What do you think? Should the 49ers trade for Jonathan Greenard?
Well, I think the price tag's really low because of the whole situation there, but I would say yes. Absolutely. Greenard is exactly the kind of player that you would want. Real impact and length off the edge, coming into his own, kind of a late bloomer, was good in college at Florida, but has gotten better and better and better. And I thought he was playing amazing football the last couple of times I saw him. So, yes, I like Jonathan Greenard. He had some injuries this year, but they need, I think their biggest need up front, Grant, is probably the interior rusher to go with what they have run stuff-wise. But they need depth and they need talent across the board. That you don't know what Bosa is going to return as. Is Bryce Huff going to be on this team or not? What's Mikel going to return as? When is he going to return? So I don't know. I mean, they've got it's hard. They're going to go 5-man fronts. They're probably going to have a different assortment of defensive linemen. I'm not really sure exactly how it's all going to come together, but I like Greenard a lot.
Yeah, I would think that the 49ers are hoping that their number 11 pick from last year, Mikel Williams, will become that interior rusher because he's definitely not an edge rusher. And whenever he was rushing the quarterback last year, it was from the inside. He was 21 years old. Maybe he'll become better at that. Maybe they could bring someone else like Yetur Gross-Matos, just not Yetur Gross-Matos. I think that they might be more aggressive looking for the second edge rusher this offseason. Maybe I'm wrong. And they could get Joey Bosa. They could get Khalil Mack. But what I like about Jonathan Greenard is he's in his 20s. I think that's phenomenal for a team that's so old. And he fits a 3-4. He can rush from the edge in the nickel as well. I think he'd be really, really good. And he has a link to Kwesi.
Well, and if they do really want to be, Lynch kind of made reference to, he didn't say scheme versatile. I forget exactly the phrasing he used it, but it wasn't like, basically it amounted to multiple up front. Like we want to have a number of different looks up front. And they want to, they showed some 5-man fronts this year. And I bet you this year, if I was guessing, they'll show even a higher percentage. So a guy like Greenard makes sense, right? Because in some fronts, he could be an edge rusher. In some fronts, he's got a big enough, long enough body where he could, stack inside. So yeah, he's another one of these guys and he's, I think, going to age well. As I said, kind of a late bloomer. He's gotten a little bit better. 2 years ago, he had an incredible year. Bunch of forced fumbles, sacks, pressures. I think his 24 season, he was off the charts.
I think you can do more with him than you could do with Nick Bosa in the sense that Nick Bosa is a pure 4-3 hand in the dirt defensive end, whereas Greenard could rush from a 3-point stance, from a 2-point stance. He could drop into coverage. You could put him in a 3-4 or a 4-3. Doesn't mean he's better than Bosa, but I think he'd be a good complement to Bosa on the outside. And I think he'd be like, you could get him probably for a 2nd-round pick, which is what they traded for D Ford 6-7 years ago. And I think he'd be a much better player than D Ford. Maybe not a much better pass rusher, but a comparable pass rusher and a much better overall player.
I think he's a very scheme versatile player. So if you're in some kind of a 34 front, he could play the 5 technique. If you're in a 4-3 front, he could be a 3 technique and play inside. He could be a 9 technique and be lined up way outside. So, I mean, he's very scheme versatile. He's got his experience both hand in the dirt and from a 2-point stance. I think, it's about health. How healthy is his body? Give him that physical, make sure it all checks out. If everything checks out with him health-wise, I think you've got a player that's got probably 2 or 3 good years of prime football right ahead.
The 49ers could wait until the draft to address their pass rush. I asked Lynch at the combine, and he like what the biggest need is, and he went straight to the pass rush. We want to be really strong up front. We really didn't have those numbers last year. I would be surprised if they didn't address it in free agency or when I say free agency, like in the next week or two, because it's their number one need in his eyes, and they spent so many draft picks on D-line last year. So I think this would be something they could be aggressive about. One of their first moves in free agency. And I do think the Vikings are an interesting trade partner because of Kwesi. Like, not only could they get Greenard, they could get Jordan Addison as well, because Kwesi drafted Jordan Addison. And it seems like the Vikings want to make major changes.
What's the deal, though? You can trade what, Pearsall for the two of them?
Well, we're gonna talk about Mac Jones later, but they do need a quarterback.
They do. Well, I'd heard something, the Kyler Murray talk, that they were going to go dance the Kyler Murray dance, or they had prioritized Kyler Murray. We'll see. Kyler was cut loose today, but yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean,
who's better than Kyler Murray?
Yeah,
Mac Jones.
I personally, we can talk more about Mac Jones whenever you want to get to it, but
yeah,
I do think Minnesota's a good dance partner for the Niners because of those two players, because I think they're both gettable. And I think the price tag on them is probably for reasons, Addison a little bit off the field, a little bit bet. Whoever gets him now might be slated to give him a contract extension. Minnesota, I don't think has any interest in that. Greenard, because maybe it seems pretty clear that they're trying to clear out the Kwesi guys. I don't know if you've seen some of the rumors. Almost all of the Kwesi moves he's made, they're trying to undo. So these guys, I think, are pretty much A- or B+ level talents that could be available for more like a C+ price. So that's why I think they're both kind of intriguing.
Yep, something to watch. Tyler Barden, new member, and he says, my YouTube channel was shuffling videos today, and the first ever Conan Kruger stream started playing. The OG Conan Kruger stream.
What?
Was that 2022?
Collector's item.
4 years ago? Wow. Blood Moon says, Jed needs to not bite the hand that feeds you. Fuck Leeds, fuck BA, get Pierce, trade Ricky, for Brian Thomas Jr., get Zion Young, 27th, sign Dobbs, sign Trey Hendrickson, and most of all, fuck Leeds. All right, Blood Moon, thank you for your comment.
Outside of the F Leeds, I kind of liked it, except for the F Leeds. It's a little heavy. The rest of that stuff was pretty good.
If it was like forget Leeds, I think I could have gotten behind that.
Yeah.
All day, just one little change. All day, every day, Kim says, Niners look desperate at every turn, crying emoji. Okay, we both are in favor of the 49ers trading a day 2 pick for Jonathan Greenard. Trey Hendrickson will not be franchise tagged. It's so funny. It seemed like the Niners were interested in trading for Trey Hendrickson, and the Bengals just wouldn't part with him, or they needed 2 first-round picks. Now they're going to lose him for nothing, and the Niners could theoretically sign him. He was a first-team All-Pro a couple of years ago. He missed 10 games last year. What do you think? If they don't get Jonathan Greenard, should they sign Trey Hendrickson?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had incredible respect for anybody on your front seven that commands a double team. Why? Because there's not a lot of guys in the league that really do. And when I say commands, I mean, I'm talking about all the time, draws doubles, and he's one of them. So I think, like, when you have guys like that inside your organization, DeForest Buckner, you don't let them go. And when you don't have those guys, yes, you should always be interested in them. So, yes, I'm interested. I'd be interested. Now, the Niners are not one Trey Hendrickson away, so it can't be one of these, they couldn't trade a bunch of assets. But if it's just about money, yeah, I mean, Trey Hendrickson fired up opposite Nick Bosa, you got to be kidding me. Yes, I think that would, if there's, there's not a lot of shortcuts to winning the Super Bowl, but, if there is one, it might be loading up with just awesome defensive linemen and just crushing the quarterback on every snap. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and maybe that's the dream, because he did say defensive front at the combine. One was asked, what's the priority? He said defensive front, didn't pause.
I like adding players from terrible franchises, players who've been able to produce and be leaders. but haven't been able to turn you into a winner. Like Leonard Williams was like that. He was on some terrible teams in New York. The Seahawks recognized that, traded for him, and now he's really good. I feel like Hendrickson could be like that. He's been so excellent consistently for teams that are, I mean, there's nothing around him on defense. He's the whole defense. You put him on a defense with actual talent. He might be even better. The last time the Niners did this, they signed a defensive lineman from the Bengals. He had been a top 5 pick in the draft. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. The Cowboy.
The Cowboy. It worked out defensive end that time. I'm just saying, he was a couple years younger when the Niners got him, but Hendrickson's 31. He's a hell of a player. If they can't get, I mean, he's a better player than Jonathan Greenard, and he wouldn't cost you a draft pick. So in a sense, I mean, they should really consider this one too. Max Crosby cost you all that money and multiple draft picks. Greenard, 1 draft pick and money. Hendrickson, you could just sign outright. I don't know. He's really good.
You know, once again, another guy didn't play at the end of the year, had new injuries. Nope. I'd like to know what his health situation is. If it all checked out, yes.
Well, the Niners have a great trainer, so it's fine.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll say this too. One thing I think that, you know, if we should learn any lessons, like I'm kind of a believer of like themes and lessons, right? You learn something from everything. The one thing I learned this year watching that Rise of the Niners documentary, it just reminded me because I lived it, but you know, it was a long time ago. The difference between the crappy Niners and we've got some talent, but we're still crappy, 6-10, 1980, and the 13-3, we're rocking and rolling, winning Super Bowl Niners was not the addition of Walsh and Montana. It was the addition of 5 fearsome defenders. Ronnie Lott, Eric Wright, Carlton Williamson, Hacksaw Reynolds, Fred Dean. And if you really ask me, what do the Niners need right now? They need more than that, right? Because they need a tight end. There's no Kittle. They need a receiver. They need a new runner, a couple offensive linemen. They need more receivers. But on defense alone, that should be the goal of the offseason. Find 5 fearsome defenders that of any age, whether they be young guys and rookies, whether they be Hacksaw Reynolds type guys, or, in this case, veteran guys. Yes, go get 5 fearsome defenders. And I think that's, if they're going to have a shot next year, and I don't think they've got a big shot, but if they're going to have a shot, that's how they're going to have their shot. They got to find 5 fearsome defenders. And Hendrickson undoubtedly is one of those.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like you're saying they need to have an all-time draft. 1981, Ronnie Lott, Eric Wright, Carlton Williamson, 3 of their first 4 picks. And then, or 86, they trade out of round 1, Tom Rathman, John Taylor, Charles Haley, Steve Wallace. If the Niners wanted to trade out of round 1 this year, I would not be against it. But they never do stuff like that. The Niners should check in on Jesse Bates, says good vibes only, played with Raheem Morris. Sure. They need a safety. We're going to talk about safeties in a minute. Baby Radiant says, now is the time to sign Jake Moody. They know him. He's available. SRT Unk says, not sure why people think we need interior rush. That's why Williams and White are here. Well, White did get shot in the foot. But yeah, that's true. That's why he's here. Okay, let's talk about Mac Jones. We brought him up earlier. It was so interesting. The messaging on him has been so funny. He's not available, but the Niners are surprised that teams aren't more interested. And if he were available, which he's not, the Niners would like a day 2 pick, or actually it was reported that they would want a round 1 pick. It doesn't sound like anyone's even offered a day 2 pick. Why do you think that is?
I mean, it's so obvious what's going on here. It's like the Niners, the initial reporting is totally accurate, which was the Niners want a significant price tag for Mac Jones, period. That's the story. The rest of this is just posturing. The Niners want a top 50 pick. So now the report is they want a first-round pick.
Right.
Because if they want a top 50 pick, how do you make sure that you get a top 50 pick? You ask for a first-round pick. And, so they're playing that game. And they know, because they know they've got the trump card, because they know what's out there. And they know what they have and how he stacks up to what the alternatives are. So they know they've got the leverage and they can just be patient. And they also know they got a quarterback that they like, who gets along in their locker room with their starter and with their players amazingly, who's also dirt cheap. So they're fine. They're good either way, but we all know that they're not in a position like, where they can keep Mac as a luxury. They're not able to keep luxuries when you don't have, foundation pieces. So they have to move them. They will move them, but this is their way of getting a top 50 pick.
I don't think they're going to get a top 50 pick for him. And that's why I don't think they're going to move him. And I think that what we're finding out is that the trade market isn't there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think what's happening is any team that were to trade for him, so you theoretically have to give up a top 50 pick. Then you'd have to give him an extension because you're making him your starter and he's not going to start for you for $4 million or he'll hate you. So that's that's a big investment. You're not taking a flyer on Mac Jones. You're trading a pick to the Niners. You're giving up a pick and then you're giving an extension. Whereas if you were to go get Geno, you wouldn't have to give up a pick, or Kyler or Kirk Cousins. And I mean,
see how bad those names are?
Draft Ty Simpson. It just seems like Mac's a little expensive for other teams, and he's probably worth more to the Niners than anywhere else. And it's hard to say that another team could take Mac Jones and say we're very confident that he'd be as good for us as he was for the 49ers. I mean, maybe Minnesota could say that, maybe not.
I mean, those are all fair points. I mean, one of the notes I saw was connected to a Barrows report saying that some executive was like, is Kyle coming with him? Kind of a thing.
Exactly.
Like Kyle is the key to Jones, but I don't know. Was Kyle the key to Darnold? I don't see
But
that
team
much
didn't have to trade for Darnold.
No, I understand, but right. I mean, but Darnold went and got a job in Minnesota, and now a couple years later,
he was great.
But I mean, I personally think Darnold was a decent prospect. I think Jones is a better prospect. I really do. And whether I know everybody's got a different opinion. That's all fine, and I understand. Darnold just won the Super Bowl, and Jones, in everybody's mind, is still just a backup quarterback who had a good year, a lucky year in Shanahan's system. But as you know, and I know, the system isn't all that. As far as it's not like it just makes water into wine, and it wasn't like Mac Jones was throwing to Rice and Taylor and Jones and Waters. He had nothing. I mean, the games that he won, he beat the Rams on a day where they couldn't run the ball at all. They had the most inefficient rushing attack day of the year. So, I mean, Mac Jones, I mean, two things can be equally true. I mean, I guess you can argue that he's not this or not that, but I don't know, man. I would have no problem if they kept him because there are things that he does better than Purdy. And I think Purdy's pretty good, as you know. So, that means I think Jones is pretty good.
To me, the team that should trade for Jones, maybe I'm wrong, but I think this team would have a better chance to win the Super Bowl. I think this team would win the Super Bowl in 2026 with Mac Jones as a starter. Houston. I don't know if CJ Stroud is ready. He's a little bit greener than Mac Jones, and he's had some terrible playoff performances. Yeah. I think if they improved their offensive line and swapped out CJ Stroud for Mac Jones, they'd win the Super Bowl. But maybe I'm tripping.
They just traded for David Montgomery.
Yep. That team's really good.
Yeah, I mean that's a good one. That's a good one. I like Atlanta for Mac Jones. I think Atlanta's a good spot because what's going on with Penix. I mean, Penix is hurt, but there's also questions about Penix, and then Cousins isn't the answer, and so they're moving on from Cousins. So it's like they don't really have an answer there, and yet they do have Kyle Pitts, Drake London, they've got Bijan Robinson, decent offensive line. They're kind of not that far away. And I think Atlanta's going to come calling. My guess is Atlanta. And also Raheem was just there. So there's a room full of defensive players that Raheem probably loves, any one of which would probably get the deal done. You want to offer a mid-round pick and Rook Ororo, yeah, I'll do it. You want to offer a mid-round pick or a seventh-round pick and Xavier Watts or somebody like that. You want to offer just Jalen Walker or any player at all that he just brought in there, he'd probably take.
That's a great call. That's a really good call. I mean, that's what the Niners did last year when they brought in Saleh, right? They brought the rest of the freaking New York Jets with them, half of them. The special teams.
And Atlanta's got a bunch of guys. And by the way, you mentioned free agents. David Onyemata, the defensive tackle, he's a very good pass rusher, very underrated. Niners have a young Collins, a young West. Do they want that third guy to be a young guy? Well, there's a lot of intriguing guys, and if they could go with in the first round, or they could go sign David Onyemata, who's a veteran interior rusher, because obviously they want to change those faces. They say goodbye to Kalia.
Marcus G916 donates $2. Thank you. Sheridan Milestone 1737 says, how does one become a GM? Because it literally doesn't seem hard to smartly draft and sign players. I can't stand John Lynch's personnel decisions. Well, one, be a Hall of Fame player, or two, become a scout and then slowly work your way up the ladder for 20 years. So those will be the ways to do it. Probably play. I mean, Larry was in the system. He could tell you.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Lyle Bolliard says, how about Devin Lloyd next to Fred Warner? That would be wild.
Devin Lloyd is a tremendous linebacker. The year he had last year was awesome. Didn't he get a pick six against the Niners?
Yes, he did. I believe he did.
I know he had a
SRT on 415 says, Niners need to sign and draft a pass rusher. At the rate guys get hurt, we need all the pass rusher help we can get. Okay, I agree. They will. Let me ask you this, though. Since we last talked, Trent Williams has requested an extension and maybe requested to get released if he doesn't get said extension. What do you think the 49ers should do? I haven't asked you. Should they just give him what he wants and keep him happy? Should they cut him? Should they trade him? Should they do nothing? What do you think?
Wow, this is a tough one, right? Because they don't have they're not prepared. It's like the storm is coming and they don't have a storm, they don't have a storm shelter. It's like, well, now what? You don't have a storm shelter. You're just effed. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have a backup plan. But then on the other hand, the Niners seem to be kind of smiling boldly through this period, being like, we have Austin Pleasance and Colton McKivitz and Trent Williams, and we're not even going to draft a tackle. I mean, it has that kind of vibe to it almost as well. So I'm not really sure exactly where they're at. I know this would be a great year to draft a tackle. I saw that ASU kid, Ian Hatcher, and he's just a 330 pounds with the greatest movement ability I've ever seen on anybody, 330 pounds. He might be a little raw, but I mean, that's what Chris Furster gets paid to do, is coach these guys. That looks like an amazing talent, and or he looks like an amazing talent. It's almost otherworldly. So yes, I mean, I don't think they ought to trade him, but it comes right down to it. Are you going to keep putting yourself in this dead cap hell? Because that's what you're headed towards. You're headed towards a mountain of dead cap, all connected to Trent Williams. You had a mountain of dead cap last year. How did that feel? If you like that feeling, then keep going down this road. If not, you better either get him to take less or at least consider your options. But I'll say this. I think this part is really sensitive. This is a very powerful presence in your room and a guy that almost has a seat at the table as far as ownership is concerned. I would either be fully quiet about it and tell nobody that you're going to do it, or tell Trent everything, but I wouldn't play it like, I'm just going to talk to some teams and hope it doesn't get out. You know what I mean? Because if it gets out and he's unhappy, you will rather have traded him than kept him.
I would trade him. Nothing against him. I mean, I think he would have a better chance to win a Super Bowl somewhere else. I would trade him to Houston. They need a left tackle. The Niners need a draft pick. I mean, they would save more money if they cut him with the post-June 1 designation, but then you'd have to – I want a draft pick, and I would take the dead cap hit now and move on. And I think one thing is going on with the Niners, maybe their fans, is they're like addicted to Trent Williams in the sense that he's one of the best left tackles of all time. His successor isn't going to be as good as Trent Williams. And that's okay. 30 other teams don't have Trent Williams. Eventually, the Niners won't either. But what you can have is a guy who's 23 on a rookie deal who will be here at a reasonable rate for the next 4 years and maybe for the next 10 if you give him multiple extensions. But that's what the Niners need. They need to get younger, especially on offense. They got to stop letting veterans treat them like an ATM. They got to put their foot down. And if they were to put it down with a future Hall of Famer, I think it would probably prevent this from happening every single year. It would show that they were strong. And I'm sorry, enough is enough. Trade him to Houston for what do you think Houston would give up for Trent Williams? Their second round pick? Two second round picks?
No, I think it's less because he's of his age. I think it's probably a third round pick.
Okay.
And then you gotta ask yourself, is it worth it? I'd be okay with that too, especially if you really liked a couple players that you knew were in your range, that you knew you could get. Let's say you've watched the film and you've met all the players and you're like, you know what? We love Jennings Dunker or whatever. We think he's special. We're going to play him at guard for 1 year and then we're going to put him at tackle. If you feel like there's a guy that you could get that you think's a great building block, then yeah. Or if you feel like there's a second round pick out there that if you just have that player, then some team was willing to give you a second, I think you got to be at this point at least considering all options.
You can get a starting offensive tackle, a good one, at the end of round 1. Joe Staley was the 28th pick in the draft. The Niners picked 27th. If they want to trade up, they can always move up 5, 6, 7 spots if they need to. I mean, why wait? I mean, you just got another 16 games out of Trent Williams. Count your blessings, move on, and don't get taken advantage of one more time. Now is the perfect time to. What would Bill Walsh do? That's always the question you should ask as a 49ers pundit, fan, general manager. There's no way he would give Trent Williams another extension at 38 years old. He'd be the guy to say, we're going to move on early, not too late.
Yeah, it's such a tough call. But I will say this. I mean, most of a buddy of mine who, scouts was like, hey, Krug, let me just tell you this, the annual thing. And he's like, I know you know this, but this is one of the thoughts that I heard a lot on the sidelines in Mobile is that when you look at these tackle classes, there's always a bunch of tackles, but when you really get down into the tape, you realize that of the 20 tackles that like 7 of them or 8 of them are going to wind up being tackles. And the rest of them are going to have to kind of transition to center or guard because they don't quite either have the length or the foot movement or the reactions or the arm length, whatever it is that they view as essential tackle traits. So, a lot of these guys that are just massive. I mean, people talk about Caden Proctor. Caden Proctor's 6'7", 360, 370. He's just a massive man. And he's been way heavier than that. These guys, really well. He did move really well. The Niners, I'll say this, the Niners love the 10-yard split. And if there was a guy to watch for in the combine, it was the Georgia kid. I think his name's Micah Morris, and he's a guard. He's like a 6'4", 335-pound guard, but he had far and away the best 10-yard split. It was like a 170 10-yard split at 330. That guy can really, really move. And I saw him at Georgia. I mean, he was a very good player at Georgia. He's slated to be there middle of the draft, 4th round, 5th round.
Caden Proctor really intrigues me. He reminds me a lot of Alfred Collins in the sense that like they're big guys that move really, really well, but they don't really have NFL bodies. But the Niners took a risk with Alfred Collins, just like they did with his older cousin Trent Brown. And it seems like Alfred Collins lost a lot of weight and bought into the nutrition stuff that they were pushing to him. I mean, he asked Nick Bosa for help. They could do the same type of thing with Caden Proctor and feel like this guy's 6'7", he's 360, 350. If he loses 30 pounds and puts on good muscle, he could be an absolute freak of nature for us, and you could get him late in round 1. I would not be against a pick like that for the Niners.
Well,
I mean, it's the kind of pick that the Eagles would make.
He's a jumbo guy for sure.
Yep.
I mean, but you watch practice. I mean, the first 5 drills for practice are all their offensive linemen sprinting, so that's really what they're looking for. They're looking for athletic guys who can sprint off the ball. So, I don't know. I mean, personally, I think the, people that I've talked to think that Proctor is more of an offensive guard. And that he may not even be a left guard, that he may just be a right guard.
Kind of tough to play guard at 6'7". Kai Becton did it.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's what everyone was saying about Kelvin Banks last year. He ended up being a good left tackle.
we're in a different world now, though. It's like in the old days, the guards were athletic, like Guy McIntyre, and the tackles were gigantic, like House Ballard. And now the tackles are kind of smaller, but can move their feet, but the guards are just behemoth. Just
To
absolutely
me, though, like
massive.
if you take a guy at 27 and you hope he could be a left tackle, but it turns out he can only be a left guard, but he's a good one, that's a good pick at 27. Any offensive lineman that's good is a good pick at 27. A center would be good at 27.
I mean,
I don't really care what position he plays.
what they really need more than anything, they just need a great offensive lineman. I mean,
Yeah.
they as far as where exactly does the guy play? Is he right tackle, left guard? I'll tell you the couple of guys that I think are just flat out dominant. To me, the guy Keelan Rutledge out of Georgia Tech. This guy's film is great. His combine was great. He's a former wrestler. He's just got great leverage. I love everything about that guy. That's a plug and play left guard right now. Keelan Rutledge, love him. I think to me he's awesome, but he's not the only guy. The Penn State guy is just a freaking ridiculous road grader. I mean, if you look up road grader, you'd see that how when they scrape the roads of ice, they have what. That's what that guy is. That guy is that guy. If you watch the film, and this is Big Ten film. This is not high school film. This isn't Division III film. Big Ten film where this guy is like it's like The Blind Side, where he's like driving the guy 12 yards down the field and then into the turf. I mean, that guy might be a Canton type player. He looks awesome to me.
Marcus,
he's so special. And like if you just said the Niners started their draft with that guy, I'd just be like, that was smart. Just smart.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go wrong. Nobody would ever call you anything but smart if you wind up with Ola Ione. But then he's not alone. Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon is just an absolute ridiculous player. 75 was his number at Oregon, and he's a terrific player. He looked great at the combine, but he's just a great player. I'm a big A&M fan. Their guard, Basantis, terrific road grading monster. Dunker from Iowa, I don't think's a tackle, but I do think's a guard, and what a monster he is. He's another road grader. As a guard, I think he's one of the safest, great picks in this draft. The guy I liked, I told you about Micah Morris. They're saying is probably going to be a late day 3 pick, but I think he's a great fit for the Niners. 6'5", 334. The guy, Grant, that you got to watch, who I think would be an absolute awesome pick to replace Brendel, is the Oklahoma center. His name's Fabichi Nawawu. Fabichi Nawawu, 6'4", 320. You have to watch this guy, though. He's a center. He can play guard, but I think he could be like an awesome, incredible drive blocking center. So there's a bunch of guys. Logan Taylor from Boston College. Jeremiah Wright, the gigantic wide body from Auburn, is like a bus. I mean, he's just so wide. It's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Marcus 916 says, do you think Kyler Murray's days as a starter are over? I don't think his days as a starter are over. He's going to get another chance. I mean, he was on Arizona's in the running for worst franchise in the NFL. They have the cheapest owners. He actually had decent stats. He's not that good, and he's a munchkin. And I think I'm a little down. I think stock down on munchkins in general in the NFL because they can't really see so good. So I think he's going to get, if Sam Darnold got another shot, I think Kyler's going to get, he was the number 1 pick in the draft. I don't know where he's going to go, though. Where do you think he's going to go? Munchkin land?
Maybe Minnesota. But you know what? Here's the thing about him. He's got big person traits. He's got big hands, strong arm. So even though he's small, he doesn't really play small that much because he's got a howitzer and he can laser it in there, and he's got home run speed. But he needs a major reset. He needs to go to, if I was him, I would go sit. This is what I would do. I would go sit behind Lamar for 1 year in Baltimore and just see where it all goes.
How about this? Go sit behind Jalen Hurts in Philly. He might be better than Jalen Hurts. I don't want to be on the
I
same
think
team
Tanner
as Jalen Hurts.
McKee's better than Jalen Hurts right now.
Yeah, I'd want to go to Philly. I think
Not
he would
bad.
make that team so much more dynamic. Jalen Hurts stopped running last year. I kept waiting for him to run against the Niners, and he never freaking did. What was that?
Jalen Hurts. It's
He's
funny.
like, let me just jog over here and throw the ball away.
A couple years ago, I compared Brock Purdy to Jalen Hurts, and it was like I was comparing, somebody who's just horrible to like God. And now I would say more Niner fans, there's no way. If you called Philly right now, Philly would easily take Brock Purdy for Jalen Hurts, I think.
I'm down on Lamar too. Although he had an excuse for not running much last year. He was injured. I don't know what the hell Jalen Hurts' excuse was. I think he just decided he didn't have to anymore. He didn't want to anymore.
He doesn't throw. He doesn't like making short, tight window throws at all. He doesn't throw the ball deep in the middle of the field at all. There's like whole quadrants of the field that the stats show he doesn't even ever attack. So it's like, what are you worried about defending those parts of the field? He doesn't ever throw the ball there.
Yeah, he's never like really an explosive passer, but he would give you so many first downs and touchdowns as a runner that he could be elite for stretches in playoff games. Now, I think he's done. So I'd like to see Kyler go to Philly. Spider Niner says, if Sadiq magically drops to 27, do you take him? It would take magic for him to drop to 27 after running that 4.4. It's not going to happen. I don't think.
No, he's like a Vernon Davis clone. Yep. And after that workout, I would say he's not getting out of. I would say he'll be gone by 20.
I would agree. Joseph Ehrenberg says Watkins will have 1K plus yards this season with 11 TDs. Who's Watkins? Jordan
Watkins.
All right.
Wow, he's more of a believer in him than I am.
Speaking of wide receivers, since we last spoke, it's been reported that the Niners are interested in Mike Evans. I mean, it seems like Juwan Jennings is one of the top, if not the top wide receiver on the market. He could get $20+ million a year. I don't think the Niners are going to give that to him. If he leaves, they'll need an X receiver who can line up on the line of scrimmage, beat the press, block, beat one-on-one coverage. I mean, Mike Evans is a future Hall of Fame X receiver, and he has specific demands. Let me get what exactly he said.
Yeah,
right,
good quarterback, winning team.
Yeah, he said he wants a quarterback he believes in, a chance at a Super Bowl, a top shelf offensive coordinator, and the promise of high volume touches. Well, I mean, while Kittle's out, if Jennings is gone, maybe they'd have to give him a lot. Do the Niners fit the criteria? Are they a good fit for each other?
Oh my God, they're the best fit. They're the best fit. I mean, just because. I mean, look, I added it up. Guess how many touches D-Rob, Cowing, Watkins, and Pearsall combined for last year?
10.
No, touches. So carries or
D-Rob. Well, Cowing got 0. Watkins got like probably 3.
Cowing,
Robinson maybe got 10.
It was actually 65.
Who am I not hearing now?
Pearsall.
Oh, Pearsall.
The one that's a little surprising is Robinson got a few touches, but 65 total touches for all those guys. So they need a volume receiver. I mean, it's easy to say, well, the Niners need speed, and they do need speed, but they may need 2 guys, and one of the guys may need to be somebody who catches like 80+ balls. I think Wan'Dale Robinson would be a great fit for them because he's caught 90 balls the last couple of years on bad Giant teams, and he catches a lot of footballs. That's the guy I think would make the biggest impact as far as, just catches. But yeah, the Niners need a volume-based receiver. They were talking about Jalen Naylor. There was a report about Jalen Naylor and Romeo Doubs. Well, Doubs makes sense because he catches a lot of footballs, but even on a crowded Green Bay team. But Naylor only does not catch a high volume of balls. So, I mean, the Niners at this point, they need somebody to move the chains. So Mike Evans, I think, makes tons of sense. There's no Kittle, there's no JJ, there's no Ayuk. McCaffrey's coming off a 450 touch season. Juice is older. Pearsall's always hurt. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of touches there for Mike Evans if he wants them.
I think he's a good fit with Brock Purdy as well. I'm going to come back to the height for a quarterback. Brock Purdy isn't too short. He's taller than 6 feet. He has mentioned that he doesn't see the field as well from the pocket. He rolls out very well. I think There's a reason he likes Jawan Jennings so much. There's a reason he likes George Kittle so much. He sees them so well, and they're both big targets as opposed to Jacob Cowing or, I mean, Brandon Ayuk wasn't the biggest target, but he had the biggest wingspan. I think he benefits from that. I think he liked receivers like that in college. And Mike Evans is the ultimate. He made Johnny Manziel look like Peyton Manning. He was super effective with Baker Mayfield. Those are both smaller quarterbacks as well. I think it would be a good fit between Purdy and Mike Evans. And I do think the Niners would give him a lot of targets. It'd be much better than bringing back Deebo Samuel. I wonder if it's a little late for Mike Evans. He just had a pretty bad year. He was injured. These are the Niners we're talking about. I don't even have to bring up the substation. The trainer and the training facility, it doesn't seem like the Niners are very good at keeping players healthy or bringing players back. I'm sure there's exceptions.
Yeah, I mean, Evans is interesting because it's like, supposedly he's going to command a big price tag. And, that's the kind of player that used to come and play for the Niners for less. So he's going to want to get, going rate, I'm sure. He is interesting from the standpoint of he's a downfield threat. With Brock Purdy, you got to have either bigger receivers or you got to have guys who are precise route runners. Why? Because he throws balls with anticipation, and you can't throw an anticipatory ball if I don't know where you're going to be, Ray McLeod, if I don't know where you're going to be, Jordan Watkins, if I don't know where you're going to be, Jacob Cowing. So that's, I think, a big thing with young receivers is that, it'll be interesting to see, do the Niners try to fill their receiver need in the draft again, or do they go try to do it in free agency or some combination thereof, or do they go with an older free agent like Evans? Because they need, if for a quarterback that throws with anticipation, you better be in the spot you're supposed to be, or it's just going to be easy picks. So, they need dynamic guys, yes, but they need dynamic guys that are going to hit their benchmarks and be where they're supposed to be, or it's going to be an ugly year.
I'm a little nervous about Mike Evans too. I mean, when wide receivers fall off, it happens real fast. In 2024, he was 31 years old. He had a really good year. He still missed 3 games. He was limping around a lot, but he still had 74 catches for 1,004 yards and 11 touchdowns. He barely got 1,000 yards, but he got 11 touchdown catches. Then in 2025 at 32, only 8 games, 62 targets, only 30 catches, 368 yards. I mean, he's only 12 yards, only 3 touchdowns. Like, is it over for him? He had a really good quarterback. He didn't have Liam Cohn anymore. I'd be really nervous about giving him $15 to $20 million a year. I'd rather sign Romeo Doubs for 10, considering Doubs is like 25 years old.
Yeah, I would too. Romeo Doubs, I think, makes a lot of sense. Why? Because he's a chain mover. That's the other thing the Niners need. They have to have somebody who can move the chain, they need somebody who can be a key third down guy. And you know what they really miss is, there was a rumor over the weekend that they like Chris Bell in the draft, and Chris Bell is great on these in-breaking routes. With no Ayuk and with maybe no JJ, they got to have somebody with Brock Purdy who can throw a lot of those in-breaking routes to those. And, Mike Evans could be that guy. Romeo Doubs could definitely be that guy. There's a lot of talk, Grant, that the 49ers are going to be one of 5 or 6 teams that when free agency begins are going to be aggressively after Alec Pierce. I think Wan'Dale Robinson and Jahan Dotson would be interesting names because they're, good route runners. And especially Dotson. I always loved Dotson at Penn State. It just hasn't happened in Philly where there was a lot of bodies, and Washington he was kind of young. But I kind of think Jahan Dotson could play good football at a cheap price for somebody.
The idea that the Niners would be like the only team in NFL history or in a long time that would have 2 white starting wide receivers, and one's named Pierce and one's named Pearsall would be hilarious to me. But hey, I'm white, so
Pearson Pearsall.
Pearson Pearsall. It sounds like a law firm,
right?
With McCaffrey and Juszczyk in the backfield. Hey, why not? That'd be cool. I just feel like Pierce is going to be very expensive. Pierce and Jennings are going to be very expensive. I don't think Dobbs is going to be that expensive, and maybe he could be better on the Niners. Maybe he could be better with Brock Purdy than he is with Jordan Love. Is Brock Purdy better than Jordan Love? When healthy, Brock Purdy seems to be a little bit better than Jordan Love. It's just Jordan Love's a little bit more durable. I don't know.
No, I think Jordan Love's body is kind of an ideal body size and type for the quarterback position, but I think Brock Purdy's decision making is quite a bit better.
Brock needs to stop turning the ball over, but I know what you mean. He seems like he thinks on his feet quicker, although sometimes he makes some crazy mistakes.
I think Brock's greatest strength is how quickly he processes. Now, once again, if you watch that Seattle film that I watched, well, the Seattle film I watched, you got an offensive line that could block for like a couple seconds and then it's jailbreak, and receivers that couldn't have gotten open if he had 10 seconds. So it's like their issues aren't the play call or Brock. Their issues are the protection and the receivers.
And that's my thing is like, if they sign Romeo Doubs, what are they going to go from scoring 6 points to 9 against Seattle? I mean, I don't think Romeo Doubs is the difference. And I don't think 33-year-old Mike Evans is the difference. If they're really going to make headway against the Seahawks, they got to go from having a weak offensive line to a strong one. And I think that takes a big commitment. I don't know. See if they do it.
We'll see, because they haven't invested a first-round pick in a guard in a long time.
That's Josh Garnett. Spider Niner says Trey Lance's brother, LOL. It's too bad the Niners seem to have alienated the entire Lance family, because it looks like Lance the younger might be the real NFL prospect here.
He can definitely run. His speed is legit. It's funny. 2 Lances, only one ran at the combine. The fast one. And he kind of reminds me of Christian Watson, who seems to be finding a foothold as a starting receiver in the NFL. I don't know if he's a guy you would make as a number 1 receiver, but he's a big threat guy. So I don't know. I'd love to see another Lance on the team, though. Yeah. Could you imagine Trey's hanging
out?
Brock
Purdy throwing to Trey Lance's little brother. Trey would be like, how could you do this to me, Bryce? How could you do this to me?
Could you imagine if Bryce Lance, they drafted Bryce Lance, just say, he's not going in the first round, but let's just say he went in round 2, because he did run on 4.3s. Let's say they drafted him in round 2, and he just becomes the man.
I know.
Right? To the point where he could call shots and be like, I want Trey to be the backup. Now you've got Brock Purdy, whose number 1 receiver is Trey Lance's brother, who's demanding Trey be his backup.
That would be really great. I'm rooting for that. Lyle Bolliard says defense wins championships. Niners need to get back to a top 5 defense. So let's get this front 7 back to where it belongs.
Yeah.
I agree. Although it seems like the back 4 also matters too. Look at Seattle. Joseph Ernberg says, how much would Pierce cost realistically? 20 million a year?
No, more. Yeah, I would say
wide receiver market is pretty crazy.
The tag is 28.
Let's talk defense. Vic Tafur and Matt Barrows both reported that executives around the league expect the 49ers to make a big push to sign Tariq Woolen. They signed Richard Sherman once upon a time. They love that scheme. They love defenders who work in zone coverages. Woolen really is that. He's had some incredible performances. He's a playmaker. He's very inconsistent. He seems a little immature. The Niners have torched him before. He had that awful taunting penalty in the NFC Championship game, but he is very talented. What do you think? Tariq Woolen. Should they get him?
Talk is he wants $20 million a year.
What do you think? Should they give it to him?
4 years. The estimate I saw was 4 years, $76 million. That's 19.
I bet he'll get it too.
I like this guy. Now, I'm not a big free agency guy. I just don't really think. I think if you go with too many free agents, it waters down your locker room, and you really got to build in the draft and just pick and choose a couple players in free agency. And then the players that come in free agency better be able to fucking play, because if they can't play, then all of a sudden all the guys in the room are like, you paid this guy and to help us and he can't play. So you really lose face with your players quickly if you sign a bunch of free agents that can't play. Mm-hmm. So that's one.
You won't pay me, but you brought in this stiff who you don't even know, and he sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy over there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They love him. That's the way to ruin your locker room. So the thing with Tariq Woolen, though, is I like this idea. The 2 guys from Seattle that I'd be interested in would be Mafe and Woolen. Woolen's 27. This guy coming out didn't run fast. He ran blistering fast. We're talking about
Mhm.
4.26 speed. He is an absolute elite athlete. I mean, one of the greatest athletes of all time, freaky athlete. And then even the people that are down on him would say, "Oh, he's been hugely inconsistent." Well, guess what? The guy played wide receiver at Texas San Antonio for like 2.5 years. I mean, he transitioned to corner, but he transitioned to corner like towards the end. So he was mostly a wide receiver. So nobody really thought of him that highly in the draft, despite the fact he was huge and ran fast. And credit John Schneider for finding him. And he's been up and down. He's had too many penalties. He's had some brains lapses. But you're talking about a guy who's almost 6'5", who runs in the 4.2s, who has 34-inch arms and can absolutely suffocate you. So I love him. I would absolutely go after this guy. This guy also has great ball skills. He showed that in college. As a rookie in the NFL with the Seahawks, he had 6 picks. 6 picks in 2022 as a rookie. He's got really, really good ball skills. He'll play the run. He's not soft against the run. Yeah, you're going to trade Bernardo most likely, it sounds like, from what I'm hearing. And so you're going to have you can't fake corner. So if you're going to move Bernardo, what do you got? You got Demo coming off of a year where I thought he was just kind of and then you got Upton Stout and a lot of question marks. So yeah, Raheem Morris is going to be in charge of these DBs. He's going to want big time players. I think Tariq Woolen is a highly likely the Niners get involved there.
I'm a little wary of this one. It seems to me that he was the third cornerback on this team. I mean, he kind of got phased out a little bit. He's definitely the most inconsistent player on their defense. The Niners have not torched him, but like had success going directly at him more than once. He's good in zone. He is a playmaker. He's 6'4". He's got speed, but you've seen if he has to actually cover someone like Ricky Pearsall one-on-one, I don't know. I don't think he really has the movement skill to handle a route runner like that.
He's just inconsistent.
I wouldn't give him $20 million a year. I wouldn't give him $20 million. He's a good player, but I think there's a reason Seattle won't. They're going to pay Devin Witherspoon. He's worth it. But Tariq Woolen, I wouldn't do it.
Well, they also, you can't pay everybody at one spot, and they do have Tariq Woolen. They're going to pay Eamon Worry. They already paid Julian Love. So they got guys who've already paid, and I think they're going to let this guy walk. But as far as the Niners are concerned, who are the Niners paying back there? They're paying Demo. That's really it. They got to pay somebody. They need a big corner. The draft, I'll say this: I love the draft, but I don't love the draft at corner beyond the 3 or 4 prospects, and even those prospects have some glitches. So,
also,
I think this is a late bloomer.
Drafted high, like with cornerbacks. They've drafted Bernardo in round 2. They drafted Shante Spencer in round 2. They took Ahmed Plummer in round 1 when I was a kid. Who was the other dude they took in round 1? Like in 19, R.W. McQuarters.
R.W. McQuarters. He also had returned.
Really
Mike Rumpf.
Those are the 5. Those are the guys.
Hall.
They didn't have much success doing it. So when the Niners make big investments in cornerbacks, it's usually in free agency. Nate Clements, Richard Sherman, Trevarius Ward. So this would be right up their alley. Go get Tariq Woolen. You know exactly what he is. If you overpay for him today and 3 years ago, it might look like an underpay given how much the cap goes up every year. I could definitely see the Niners doing this.
I mean, look at it this way. I think we all have to change our thinking from what's the most important thing in football. Okay, so we start with, it's the quarterback, and it is the quarterback. Okay, so it's the quarterback. That's the most important thing in football. The next thing we always think about is we got to get offensive linemen so we can run the ball. That's the old school thinking, right? Run the ball, stop the run. And that's great, and it matters. But the new school thinking with Mike McDonald and the Seahawks is win the explosive play ratio within the game. And how do you do that? You do that by getting explosive defensive players and having explosive plays on offense. So do they worry about moving the chains? No, they got Rashid Shaheed or whatever. And all of a sudden they're going up top, and Kenneth Walker, super fast tight end, and, all kinds of pass rush and talent in the secondary, and they just strangle you. So that's it right there. They have tons of explosives themselves, and you don't get any explosives against them. They win the explosive ratio in every game they play, And I think that's the new NFL. So what I like about Tariq Woolen is that he's a corner, a big dominating corner. And I think you've got to do everything you can to create explosive plays. And that means you have to have explosive athletes on the edges.
And it's been 2 years in a row that the Niners haven't been able to create takeaways. And it's not going to happen because they hire some coach who does a good speech on Thursday. Remember when they made Nick Sorensen the defensive coordinator because he's take the ball away meetings that he would do? Anyway, that was a good time. Okay, look, there's a lot of players the Niners could bring back who are former 49ers. Deebo Samuel's one of them. No one really wants the Niners to do that. They could bring back Jake Moody. There's all kind of players. Jimmy Ward is an interesting one. They drafted him. He left to go to Houston with D'Amico. They're releasing him. He's better than Jair Brown. He's in his mid-30s. He didn't play much last year. Would you take a flyer on Jimmy Ward?
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, once again, I want to make sure that on week 1, I have at least 5 truly fearsome defensive players that I don't have now. And so, I mean, that means if I'm going to make sure that I have 5 fearsome defenders, that means I've got to add like close to 10, on some level. And he would be one of them. Now, obviously, he's late in his career. You don't got to pay him a lot. It wouldn't be a big financial deal. But yes, a guy who's as versatile as he is, and I'd love to see Shanahan show that he's the bigger guy and whatever fences he needs to mend them. This guy can play linebacker. He can play safety. He can play nickel. He can play corner. He can play in his prime. He can play them all. Are you telling me now he can't play anything? I think he can. And I would definitely want him. He's the kind of violent player that you need more of, not less of. They need more players like this. I know it's looking back and he's an older player, so it's more of a flyer, but yes, I would take a flyer on him and find out what he's got.
I would take a flyer on Jimmy Ward. I would take a flyer on Dre Greenlaw. If those guys would accept incentive-based one-year deals, I would want them back on the team. I felt like they were key members of really good defenses that the Niners haven't replaced. And maybe they're obviously past their prime. Maybe they're washed, but maybe they're not. And I'm looking at Jimmy. He played 10 games last year. He had 2 picks, 48 combined tackles. I think there's something there. And you still have Jair Brown. You still have Marquise Siegel. You don't need him to play 17 games. I think that's it. I just wonder, what is the relationship like if they have one? Because some players leave the Niners and are resentful. Jimmy Ward. I feel like Jimmy Garoppolo wouldn't come back if the Niners wanted him. Not that they do. Yeah.
Well, and then other guys realize how good they had it here, like Deebo, and are like, "Oh, I got to get back there. I got to get back there." So, most of the time, if you go look at almost all transactions in the NFL, there's some, hey, you know what? I mean, you see it and I see it. We go in the locker room and talk to the different players. Hey, they brought in some 5th string safety, and you talk to him for 5 minutes, and you're like, yeah, Chris was my position coach at, blah, blah, blah state. And, so there's always some kind of relationship, not always, but generally there's some kind of, hey, this guy knew this guy from this place, and that's why we signed him. Maybe a little bit too much of that, to be honest, but there's a lot of that generally going on.
All right, last question for you. In 2023, the Niners had one of the most talented teams to not win a Super Bowl. They had 9 players who were voted in the top 100 in the NFL by their peers. In 2026, how many 49ers do you think will get that honor, top 100, in the upcoming season?
How many players on the Niners will be top 100?
Yeah.
Purdy, Bosa.
Purdy did not make it in 2025.
He wasn't top 100. I thought it was 87.
No.
What list are we talking about?
NFL Network top 100 players, 2025. Let me see how many Niners made it.
Bosa, Warner, that might be it.
But, okay, so it was Warner 16,
and
Kittle
CMC.
31, Trent Williams 45, Nick Bosa 57. That was it, which is weird because Purdy was like 20-something in 2024.
So say that again. Who were the ranked guys in 25?
We got 4 guys last year. It was Fred Warner at 16, George Kittle at 31, Trent Williams at 45, Nick Bosa at 57. How many will make it this upcoming season?
Well, I would say no more than that because I would say probably 4. One of those guys will likely fall out. Maybe somebody else jumps in. Maybe 4.
I don't know that Kittle's going to make it this year. I mean, maybe he'll
Kittle's
make it
definitely
back
not
in
going to make it.
2027, but I don't know about Kittle this year. We'll see about Bosa coming off the ACL. We'll see about Trent Williams at 38 years old. I think definitely Fred, maybe Brock. If Brock can stay healthy for 15, 16 games, probably Brock. That's 2. But beyond that,
Well, definitely not Kittle.
not Kittle.
Yeah, not Kittle. And the thing about it is, it's hard to project anybody new in there.
Yep.
It's not like they don't have that one player like, oh, well, definitely this guy.
Ricky or Michael, those are your 2 first-round picks.
No.
Upton Stout. I don't know.
Upton Stout's your best young player. Unless Curtis Rourke suddenly shows up in training camp and just looks like a ton. And that's the other thing. That's kind of the wild card factor. We have no idea what Curtis Rourke's going to be.
What if Curtis Rourke is better than Fernando Mendoza? What if he was the real talent from Indiana?
What if Curtis Rourke's a star? That would be the Niners. That would be an incredible lucky moment for the Niners if Curtis Rourke was a superstar.
He might be.
You never know.
Okay. Yeah,
probably
I'm
not.
a little
Probably not.
cynical right now. I'm thinking 1 to 2, Larry, and I'm thinking this is why maybe John Lynch hasn't gotten his extension yet, because the state of the right. You had a juggernaut 3 years ago. This is far from a juggernaut.
I mean, look at it this way. I always like, there's a million different ways you can look at it. PFF and these rankings, those rankings, and everybody's got their power rankings. I looked at just the odds for Super Bowl 61, and the Niners aren't one of the top 10 teams in the odds, and they generally are. So to not see them in the top 10 says that there's at least 10 teams that are better than them. There's only 32 teams in the league. So you're kind of approaching mid-pack status. And I would say that's where they're at unless they get themselves out of it with a strong offseason. If they have a strong offseason, they could vault themselves back into the bottom tier of Super Bowl contention. But without a strong offseason, I think they're a mid-pack team that's still very popular, but not a true Super Bowl contender.
I just think they have so much in common with the Warriors. You had a team, you didn't have a championship team, but you had an NFC championship team that you held on to for so long, and you can't get younger. Here and there on defense, but where it really matters, where like the star players is still all the old guys. And I think for years they had so much respect among pundits that people felt like, well, you can't count out the 49ers. Like, as long as they're healthy, they're going to be right in the mix. But now at this point, I think most people look at the Niners and say they're not going to be healthy. They're old, and they haven't replenished their roster, and they missed their window. And I think the Niners are the only people that don't look at themselves that way. They still feel like, no. If we're healthy, we can be there. All right, well then fire your trainer, get a real trainer, move your practice facility, and get younger players. And they're not going to do any of those 3 things.
Yeah, I mean, I look at them and say, when they went to the Super Bowl against KC the first time, them and KC were, by the GPS, the fastest teams in pro football.
It's true.
They are so far away from that point personnel-wise with their current roster compared to their roster in that Super Bowl 54. And so, I mean, that's what it's going to take. So all the smart moves, I think, are to trade Jones, get more picks. All of the smart moves are to trade back in the first round and get more picks, and hope that you sign the right series of 3 or 4 free agents and that you draft really well with some volume like they did in 86. And if they do that, and it's a big if because it's hard to do, if they do that, they'll probably contend. But if they don't, they probably won't.
They just have a frightening number of players on their team that seem to be like one major injury away from retirement. Kittle, Bosa, McCaffrey, Trent. I mean, just one major injury away. You wonder how many more Nick Bosa could take. They got to get younger. They got to stop giving money to players and hoping that they can keep it together. But I don't know, Larry, do you think this is the year they learn?
They learn? Is that what you said?
Yeah, learn, change, evolve.
Well, I mean,
grow.
we're going to have to see something on offense because what's going to move the ball? Are you going to be able to acquire a receiver?
Jake, motherfucking Tonjes.
An 80 catch receiver? Is an 80 catch receiver going to walk in there? If not,
his name is Jacob.
You're going to have to come away, I think, with a tight end, a receiver, and a running back, and at least one, probably two offensive linemen. And then on defense, you need a pass rushing tackle, a pass rushing end, at least two linebackers, a safety, and a corner. So I mean, you got a bunch of needs,
and maybe a kicker.
Yeah, and maybe a kicker. They don't want to pay their kicker. They're going to let their kicker walk. I mean, think about that for a second. You're going, and I've heard the reports. We all know the franchise tag $6.7 million for kickers. A good kicker wants north of $5 million. He wants a 3-year, $15 million deal, $5 million a year for 3 years.
He wants the dinero.
And the Niners are offering supposedly 3.5, or maybe it's even less. So, 3.5 versus, and you're going to let, in a year where you had your kicker save your bacon, you're going to let a good kicker who fits in your room and your fans love out the door for $1.5 million, but then you're potentially going to give Deebo Samuel, who can't play, dead, and you're going to re-sign him. What do you think he's going to make?
I think that says a lot about the Niners organization.
If the Niners wind up letting go of Eddie Pinheiro and paying Deebo north of $5 million,
well, you can sell Deebo bobbleheads. You can sell Deebo jerseys. Do you understand how many jerseys they would sell if he came back on the team? You can't sell Eddie Pinheiro jerseys. Although, you know what? I just bought one. I bought one. I want to support Eddie Pinheiro and give him more dinero. I'm buying an Eddie. I think people would see me walking down the street wearing that jersey and say, that guy is cool. He's cool. And that's what I want.
Well, and also it's like, if you're really running this regime, at this point, you're in year 10. I think I would be cognizant of all things that potentially could make people turn on me. If I'm in year 10 and I haven't gotten my stated Super Bowl goal achieved yet. And one of those would be I wouldn't get rid of an enormously popular kicker who was doing his job and roll the dice. I blew a third round pick on a kicker that didn't work out, and I lucked into a free agent kicker, and I'm going to let him walk away because of $1.5 million, but then give Deebo. What's Deebo going to get? I would say Deebo's going to get like 2 years, $16 million or some ridiculous thing like that. Watch.
The only person it could put a stop to this is Parag Marate. Parag, if you're watching, don't let Kyle Shanahan give Deebo more money. He's giving Deebo too much money, and they got to stop on this team. If you know the coach or someone affiliated with the coach, you got a spot for life here. If you don't, you're getting cut. They got to stop with that friends and family discount on the 49ers. Got to stop. Yeah. Anyway, that's my rant. Thanks for watching. This has been Grant and Larry. The W888 donates 99 cents at the buzzer. Thank you very much. Great stuff. Make sure you follow Larry, subscribe to Larry on all the platforms, YouTube, X, TikTok, all the platforms. And free agency starts next week. Stuff's ramping up. Make sure you tap in. See you guys.